Welcome, one and all, once again to another Scouching Report. Today we are looking at Caleb Desnoyers, who is a center largely, but played a little bit at every position this year for the Moncton Wildcats, the QMJHL champions Moncton Wildcats, I should say. So Caleb Desnoyers has been a very intriguing player this season in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of chatter about him going into the NHL draft season this year. Personally, I have come a ways on him. I originally saw him as a guy just outside the first round early in the year, but the more I've seen, the more I moved him up a little bit, and now he's worked his way into what I think is a reasonable valuation for him, which is around the top 20, which is, it seems like, where he is not going to go in reality. I feel like this guy might be a top 5, maybe even top 3 pick at this point, and I hope that this video illustrates maybe why I think that might be a little bit of an overvaluation, but I do think there's a lot to Caleb Desnoyers that I really have enjoyed over the course of this season. So in a nutshell, Caleb Desnoyers is a player who I think, in terms of passing the puck, seeing the ice, and making these sort of creative plays that march the game forward, he might be one of the better ones in the draft. He is a pretty capable and dependable, energetic forward who does a pretty good job at getting up and down the ice and grinding along the boards and doing all those things. But what he really does best is this offensive zone awareness, especially pass timing, being a little bit patient, looking for really good options, and just driving really good results. Over the course of this season, Desnoyers has been one of the better analytical players in my data set this year, but he is also one of these players that I'm not sure I buy it as projectable to the NHL, but there is still a lot about Caleb Desnoyers that I think is pretty high end, and we're going to get into it in the video right now. But before we do, definitely consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out. If you really liked it, go to scouting.ca, get a subscription. It would help us fund our work, and it helps us directly very well. You'll get early access to these videos as soon as possible, as well as data tables, visualization tools, and plenty of other fun stuff you won't find anywhere else, and a really fun Discord server that we're all parts of. So let's get into the video on Desnoyers. So as I said in the intro, we're going to start with what I think Desnoyers does best, which is this sort of offensive zone playmaking ability and timing his passes and just driving good amounts of offense. And this is a really good example of it, right? It doesn't go his way on this play, but what I want to highlight is not only is Desnoyers doing some pretty fun stuff skill-wise here, right? Putting it between his legs, whatever, but what matters to me is turning off of this pressure and then in a split second, waiting for a minute, and now he's got an absolute chasm of space to play with. 21 here shoots this way, so this is a much better opportunity that Desnoyers has created for himself. It gets knocked down anyway, so too bad. But to me, this is a good indicator of Desnoyers and kind of the things that he brings to the table, where the pace and his speed is not necessarily incredible, but adapting the play in front of him, working off of contact and moving pucks into the scoring areas, it's all pretty good. It's a good start. Again, this is just really nice stuff from Desnoyers as well, right? He gets a really nice pass here, gets the offensive entry, really good footwork just to turn and work off of the pressure that's in the defensive zone for the opposing team, his offensive zone, and just makes a nice clean pass. Again, maybe this could have been defended a little bit better from this guy because this is obviously a bit of a lane that they've created here, but yeah. So for me, this was also another play I wanted to highlight as just really good sort of overall offensive zone pass instincts from him. There's a lot of determination on this play from Desnoyers. He's going to get it on the exit here. He's going to carry it almost the whole way down the ice. It's a nice little give and go there from Mr. Sumpf, and he just gets down low and tosses it out in front. There's nobody there to get it in the scoring area there, but at the end of the day, again, it's that hustle, that determination. You know, he doesn't necessarily leave Coughlin behind speed-wise, but he does do a good job working through Coughlin's pressure to get to those areas and get the puck in front. And here is another one. This was a really nice example as well, where Desnoyers gets the puck and enters the offensive zone, and look, he just waits that extra little bit and just passes it off. Again, it's not the most dangerous scoring chance, but these are the instincts that I've really liked about him. This ability to sort of look at the ice and go, okay, this is probably not going to work. I can't really hit Julius Sumpf here in transition going to the net. So what am I going to do? Mr. Collard here stops up a little bit and just enough to shake off that pressure from 84 and they get themselves a scoring chance. This is something he did every game, all the time, and it just drove results all the time. And so this is the kind of thing that I've really liked about his game over the course of the season. Again, there's some really nice skill going on this play too. Desnoyers manages to just curl the puck around that guy and make him look a little silly and then put it out in front. Puck doesn't go in. Too bad, so sad. But again, this is the kind of thing you note. skill, gets around that dude, and creates a scoring chance out of it. Is it the best quality defending? Probably not, but again, you're seeing good skill out of him and good creativity, but the best thing is using it in a smart way. Once again, I think this is the kind of thing that scratches an itch for an NHL team. Just that off-puck anticipation, getting into the offensive zone, drawing a penalty, and sticking with it as he hits the ice, getting still a puck into scoring area here. Like, that is just a really, really determined play. I think it showcases a lot of things that NHL scouts look for, right? A little bit sloppy on the part of St. John here, but at the end of the day, just a good overall sort of sequence here that showcases things I think people are going to really like about him. This is more of what we've talked about. Again, this is the thing I really wanted to lead with Desnoyers, which is just this ability to get into the offensive zone. Again, not the most skilled, most high-paced, high-skill dude, but this little cut this way. Just a little cut that way gets this defenseman to bite ever so slightly this way, and he just flips the puck back that way to Julius Sumpf on the entry here, and they score. Like, this kind of thing, yeah, he could have chipped it right into the offensive zone, and they could have had a forechecking moment here, but that little cut inside, backhand pass to the supporting winger, smart play, good stuff, and these guys, this is what this line did all year long. Like, it was pretty amazing to watch these guys all play together, and Desnoyers had his role, and he played it quite well. This is Desnoyers again. I think you can note that, you know, the skating stride and the skill combination is not incredible compared to some other guys in this year's draft, but just a good ability on this entry too. Like, this little hiccup, again, these little stutters, these little hesitations that I think are planned, right? Is he going to shoot? Is he going to pass here, right? Look at where his head is. His head is not pointed at the net. He's thinking maybe I'll slip pass it to this guy or send it to 90 over here. But then what does he do? He cuts in and just shoots it himself. You know, these types of things, like these deceptive moments, these sort of little stutters are important to see, I think. And again, he is one of the smarter offensive zone playmakers that's available this year. This is just becoming a broken record at this point, just Aitchison capitalizing on the mistake of an opponent, which is, I think, a pattern that I noticed as well, and just getting into the offensive zone and generating something. I always get a little skeptical of players who get a lot of their moments out of when opposition makes mistakes, especially in Quebec, but I still think that this showcases, again, that patience, a bit of quickness as well to just jump into that lane, take number 6 for a ride. There's no chance number 6 here is going to do anything against a guy like Desnoyers. Really nice pass into the slot and generated a scoring chance for Pekarczyk. Another really, really, really fun little pass from Desnoyers. Again, this is something he does extremely well. Little chip pass there, good support from his line mate, and just watch what he does on this pass reception. 25 had no hope. There was no hope for number 25 on that one. Just gets right around him, threads the pass through, easy peasy. This is how you score a bunch of points. This is how you do it. I have no idea how this managed to get through so many feet and legs to the point where I just refuse to believe that an NHL team would allow this to happen. But the patience, again, is on display here with Desnoyers. Really, really good, right? Good support, gets in a good position here, good support along the boards as well, right? Nobody has him. He's just alone. It is a bad player to leave wide open and alone like that, and they just don't challenge him at all. He carries it and somehow manages to use this lane to his advantage, and they score. So take this for what you will, but this is just, you know, if you want some goals, if you want points, if that's what you want me to show you, this is a good example of Desnoyers and where a lot of it came from. Just a pass reception and open space in the offensive zone, patience, bang, goal. I mean, I'm convinced that if my YouTube channel were literally just posting a clip like this, it would get more views than it does. And I mean, people just love stuff like this. And so do I, honestly. Desnoyers here, again, just nice one-touch passing, really good vision. I mean, part of this also makes me think that they're just so well coached by Gardner McDougall here, because their structure and their awareness of where everybody else is so good, and was so good all season long. You know, I remember this game was very lopsided and very not close, and there's reasons for that. And I think that with Desnoyers, this is a really, really nice cross-ice pass that he makes very quickly and very accurately, and that's the kind of thing that he did a lot this season. Once again, this is another play where I am mystified that somehow this worked, right? Desnoyers is under technically, I guess, double coverage here. Nobody challenges him really much at all. Sends a pass through that middle of the ice area and then manages to get to the net and still not facing much pressure at all. You know, Desnoyers comes up with the puck here and turns around and puts it back on net, right? I mean, sometimes I watch this level of play and I go, how did that happen? And, you know, yeah, I think Desnoyers has a lot of capability, but the NHL will play this a little bit better, I think. There's going to be a little more energy, a little more intensity, and a little bit more speed and physicality, but still, that pass timing, that lane awareness, that ability to just turn and fire and all that stuff, good stuff. So Desnoyers is here, and this is why you go to the net, kids. This is just why you go to the net, because then this happens. Again, does that get covered a little bit better by better opposition in front of the net? Yeah, maybe you could make that argument. But again, you go to the net, good things will happen. So similar to Keishon Aitchison, I think Caleb Desnoyers is a guy who you really can't question sort of the on-ice character that he has. And this is a bit of a lazy but a good example of this where, you know, he just swipes at the puck when he knows he's not going to get there. He doesn't really make life easy for his opponents. And this is something that he did relatively often, right? I mean, that went from an easy pass reception or puck reception from the opposing team into something that was put on net, and I'll take that every day. Longtime viewers of the channel will know that I am not a huge fan of guys portrayed as very physical and intense, but just don't finish their checks and lose physical battles along the boards. Doesn't attack the puck really here, but again, you see a player willing to forecheck and get involved along the boards. This is another area where he was pretty good this year. Again, you're going to get some good competitiveness out of this guy, right? So here is Desnoyers in the middle of the ice here, and he's just going to do the work. Battle, stick check, gets in the way. Off they go. This was a nice thing to do for your goalie here, just passing the stick back to him. You know, nice guy, a nice little play there, and then nice off puck positioning here to block this passing lane, and now you've broken a cycle, or at least came close to breaking a cycle. So yeah, I don't know. I pulled this one because it was nice. It was a nice boy. You know, nice move. And it's also a pretty smart read off the puck. The smarts that Desnoyers has with the puck on his stick also translate as well to the defensive zone at times too, right? Settles that puck really well, and just again, that little bit of patience to let the play form around him, let a passing lane create itself, and pull that puck around the forechecker there, and now he's got a much, much better look at the ice here. He's got one option, he's got two options. You know, if he really wanted to, he could probably kick it back into the corner, but he doesn't, and that's probably not the right play, but makes the right play anyway, gets it out of his own end, and off he goes. So this is the kind of thing I love to see out of him. Again, we talked about it a few videos ago, but like the turret passing, where you may not need to be in a huge amount of motion or a huge amount of pace, but if you can read the room, if you can read what's going on around you, let things happen around you and adapt to it and make good, safe, good plays, I think that works just fine for me. Another really, really nice passing lane here from Desnoyers that he exploits pretty well. Gets the pass in the offensive zone here. This rush also starts with a nice pass off the boards from him in his own end. But yeah, just this nice pass to the player that's off the screen here, clean tape to tape, and they almost get a scoring chance out of it. To me, this doesn't happen without Desnoyers' simple, effective passing game, getting the puck up the ice and just driving play in the right direction and making good, well-timed passes and taking advantage of some defensive structures that are kind of sleeping a little. Once again, I don't understand how he manages to get the puck through all four of these guys. Like, I don't know. I don't know how many times this kind of thing happens in the NHL, but the fact that he's able to do this and take on that kind of risk and have a clean pass like that is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, this is what he did all year long. This is just how it went. Another really nice cross-ice pass again in the offensive zone. And I think the thing that you'll notice in these clips, if you're paying a little bit of attention, not saying you're not, you know, I'm sure you're paying attention, but a thing that I have about Caleb Desnoyers in my notes from most games is that a lot of the time play is really generated up the ice by others, and Desnoyers does a really good job being a supportive, complementary part of it. Sumpf gets the puck in the offensive zone, gives it right to Desnoyers. Desnoyers has the puck on his stick for a very small amount of time, but makes a great pass in the offensive zone, right? Carries it out wide, he's under pressure, but bam, there's an open guy, and he makes no mistake. He gets it right over. I think that's Pekarchik, and they managed to get themselves almost a scoring chance. So that's a pattern that we're going to get into later, and it's a little bit more apparent in the data maybe, but this is something that I think this is kind of who he is as a player, and there's nothing wrong with that. And again, this is a really good example of the opposite of that, where he does carry the puck up the ice pretty well, but I just feel like at the next level, I wouldn't trust him as a primary puck carrier against NHL talent, but if you can play off of contact and work off of the opponent like this and play this kind of smart possession hockey, you're good in my books. It's all good to me. It's fine and dandy. So yeah, Desnoyers this is what he does. And I think amongst all the players in this draft, he's not far from the top with regards to this kind of thing. Once again, Desnoyers does a really, really good job getting an inside lane here. It's always a really tough line for me to cross when you're looking, especially in the Maritimes these days, because some of these teams are not particularly good, right? Like the shots are 41-25 here. Yeah, it's 6-5, but one team is clearly dominating the possession here, and Desnoyers just has his way, just gets right into the middle of the net here under very little pressure, but it's a good route to run, right? Like it's a good route to take right through the defensive structure there. If you give it to him, he's going to see it and he's going to take it. So that's another thing to note if you're going to pre-scout him as an opponent. It's like, you got to be careful with where he's putting himself because he can find a lane and he will exploit it. Everybody likes a good hit. Here goes Desnoyers. Bang. He did throw quite a bit of hits in the games that I tracked. I don't know how many I would consider like super high end, stuff like this. It wasn't that common, but this is a physical player who has a competitive streak to him. This is again flashes of skill out of Desnoyers. Just cuts into the middle really well right off this face-off, gets right around one guy and ends up coughing the puck. I think he might have taken on a little bit more than he can chew here. But again, you're seeing these moments of skill, which we've seen throughout this entire video to this point. We just did our Keishon Aitchison video, and how many times did we see Aitchison line up a guy skating this direction in this area of the ice? If this were Keishon Aitchison, he would be up here right now and absolutely trying to deck Caleb Desnoyers. So that's something to keep in mind, is guys like Aitchison will note that, and then not a great shot on net. So a thing we'll highlight in the data is that Desnoyers' shot selection is really hit or miss depending on the game and situation and everything. But this was also a moment where it's a nice cut into the middle and pops one on net. Like his shot's not bad. He scored a lot of goals this year, but shot selection is something that I would probably want to fix or work on or improve, especially with how good he was at finding passing lanes and setting up plays for others. Once again, this is Desnoyers getting a pass on the offensive zone entry and not really facing a whole lot of defensive pressure. Just kind of does what he likes, tries to send a pass out, it gets blocked, but gets the puck right back. I mean, Moncton was just a pretty dominant team a lot of this season, but then he pops another one on net after carrying it all the way around the perimeter, pops one on net. I mean, I guess I see what he's trying to do here, but not a super high percentage play. Maybe it is in Quebec, but yeah, not a high percentage play. And for me, this was something that happened a little bit too often, but the point is he sticks with play. He's got some good resilience to him. He gets around. He can do stuff. And again, he's competitive. You can't take that away from him. Really, really nice forecheck work here. I mean, we've seen so many clips of him just eating 25's lunch money on Baikomo here and pops it right out in front and generates a scoring chance. So on opposing teams' mistakes, he thinks quickly, he thinks creatively, he thinks on his toes and gets the job done. To me, that's valuable, and I think that's where he brings the most value. So we're going to get into some areas, I think, of potential improvement for Desnoyers. And I mean, look, I think I look at Desnoyers as a player who there aren't that many current holes in his game as he is right now. I can't look at him and go, yeah, like I feel like this is an area of real improvement. This is an area of real improvement. This wasn't very good. This wasn't very good, blah, blah, blah. I don't think there's much of that with Desnoyers. But I do wonder about Desnoyers as a guy who is smart, creative, a good playmaker, good at a lot of things, but once things get ratcheted up to sort of the NHL level, what is his role going to be? What kind of an offensive impact is he going to bring at the offensive side, and defensively, what is he going to bring as well? And I'm only playing this clip over and over again because it does highlight that I would really want to work on Desnoyers' footwork and quickness and just that ability to generate speed, because stuff like this, you're 2 steps behind where the puck is going, and this is a pretty dangerous scoring chance against for Cape Breton. So it's not, obviously this is not the end of the world, but it's sort of an example of what I think might be a bit of a thing that holds him back, is projecting as what a top 3 guy in the NHL draft might become or should become. So this is kind of one of the things where I kind of have him a little lower. I just have a little bit less trust in these guys that have a lot of good sort of cerebral tools, but the actual on-ice product, especially when they're playing in Quebec, is just a little bit trickier to project to the highest levels of hockey in the world. And this is what I mean, right? So again, Desnoyers isn't really defending with his feet here. If he has time and space to wheel up and really attack along the boards, he kind of does do that from time to time. But on this, it's just kind of soft defensive coverage. He's a step behind. It's just a matter of finishing the job here and defending with your legs a lot more. And I feel like with Desnoyers, you know, maybe it works at this level, but at higher levels, it's a bit more of a question mark. This I don't think is entirely his fault, but again, the speed and the pace of his game is a little bit limited. They skate around him, and he kind of also just abandons the front of the net here, right? Obviously, you would think that the rest of the team probably has enough support to prevent this puck from going in, but Desnoyers just kind of leaves and doesn't get into the passing lane there very well, and they end up getting scored on. Not something I wanted to like pick on really, but it's just one that I noted where I'm going, he like what's his thought process here? Like, where is he headed? What's going on here? And could he have done something a little bit differently here? And yeah, just another thing just to note. So Desnoyers, I think, is going to need to be a player who is very, very, very strong on his feet in the NHL to make things work at the next level. And what I've seen out of him a little bit more often than I would like is an ability to sort of invite a lot of pressure, but kind of buckle a little bit under some good pressure. And I mean, we're watching the Memorial Cup as I record this, and I think that's something that's getting a little bit exposed right now against teams like London, especially, where these really more forecheck heavy, these defensively intense teams that play hard and big and physical can be a bit of a challenge for him to work around, because that skill level and a bit limited reach doesn't really get him out of as many jams. But I still have to respect the creativity, but this is an example of maybe what might be an issue. And this is another one. Like, it's, again, not the end of the world, but this is a player who I think will need to be pretty strong in order to play his style of play in the NHL. I just feel like that coverage takes him out a little bit too easily. And does this automatically mean that I don't like this player or that he's hopeless or something? No, not at all. It's just to highlight areas that might need some work in order to be the best version of himself in the NHL he can be. So here's another example. This is from earlier in the year, but again, this is Desnoyers against a team that they're out shooting more than 2-1. The pace of his play through the neutral zone here, I believe I timed this one, and I track a lot of blue line to blue line times as much as I can of players when they do it. And I think Desnoyers is definitely one of the slower ones out there this season. He's more around the 2-second mark, 1.9 seconds, I believe. And so again, carrying these pucks, he's a little bit slower than a lot of the other players, especially considered at the top end of the draft. And under this pressure in the offensive zone here, just not facing a tremendous amount of physical pressure and causing a turnover. It's, again, the stronger he is at the next level, I think the better off he's going to be. So here is an example of also more of what I'm talking about, right? On the back check here, you can just tell that the guys around him are more fluid, they're moving quicker, and yes, Desnoyers is the youngest player on this forward line, but he is behind the play on this, and 29 gets a pretty easy route to the net. Desnoyers does get involved there and gets, you know, in the mix of the defensive play here, but again, the NHL is fast and heavy and hard, and if you have a player here who is a little bit maybe not the strongest under close physical pressure, and also doesn't really have the raw speed and physical or intensity to tie guys up before they get to the puck in the offensive zone, or his defensive zone, I should say, that might be a little bit of a difficult combination to work with, and will need work, I think, in the future. So this is the last kind of thing I really felt was a pattern with Desnoyers that I did want to highlight. And I don't want to make a compilation of Caleb Desnoyers bobbling pucks, but there are quite a few clips I pulled of Desnoyers doing just that. And to me, I think if you are drafting a player really, 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 really high in the NHL draft, their puck possession skill and their ability to settle the puck and all these things, I think needs to be really, really good. That's not the best exit pass, I'm not going to lie, but there were a number of instances where pucks would bounce off of Desnoyers' stick, pucks would just bounce off his feet trying to kick them to his stick, and on receptions, it would just be a little bit sloppy here and there. Not the end of the world, but settling the puck, getting it under control, and really having that tight, ability to control the puck is something that is kind of lacking with this game right now. Not saying it can't get there in the future, but I think it's something that might limit his projectability to the next level. And with that, we've reached the end of Caleb Desnoyers' folder of video clips that I have pulled that I felt was worth showing. So overall, I mean, look, Desnoyers has consistently gone up and up and up my board, and it's really only because other players, the more I watch them, the less I like, and the more I watch Desnoyers, the more I really appreciate about what he does best. He's worked his way up into my top 15 for this year's draft, and I think that that's reasonable. I mean, look, the draft for me really opens up around 7th overall, and if Desnoyers is there at 7, 8, 9, 10, and you really love the smarts, and you really love the playmaking, and you really, really love just the overall package of hockey sense, I guess you could say, that he brings to the table, then yes, I could be persuaded to draft him in that range. For me, I think there are guys with a better tool set available, a higher end sort of floor of talent to work on, who have been tested against better competition, right? I think Desnoyers at the Memorial Cup he's still the Desnoyers I remember, but a lot of the gaps that I think have been there in his game are getting exploited a little bit more. He's not getting away with as much in the way of confidence and all this stuff. But once the puck is in the offensive zone, you still see a lot of potential with him. The other benefit with Desnoyers is not something that I track, but there is data out there on it. He is statistically, I think, the best face-off guy of first-time draft eligibles out there right now. He took a lot of face-offs this year. He's largely played center in most of the games I've seen. He played wing here and there as well. But he did win, I think, 64% of the face-offs that he took. So to me, I think Desnoyers does have a pretty safe NHL floor, right? And I think he's one of multiple guys in this year's draft who have a pretty safe NHL floor, but for different reasons, right? With him, I think there's a good floor of he possesses the puck really, really well. He is patient. He has this sort of creative vision with the puck on his stick that I think is really impressive. He, puts in a good effort. I think he's definitely physical along the boards when he needs to. And I think that if he gets stronger and a little bit more sort of strong on his base and can resist pressure a little bit better, he could be a really impressive player. And I think the passing work, once the puck is in the offensive zone, is where he really shines. So to me, I looked at Moncton this year, and it's almost a joke now in our Discord server, but I do feel very strongly that when you watch the Moncton Wildcats this year, they are at their best, and everyone is really firing on all cylinders when guys like Pikarczyk and Sump are the guys that drive the puck up the ice. They're the ones with the speed. They're the ones with the intensity. They check, they free up the puck, they get it to Desnoyers somewhere in the neutral zone or at the offensive blue line, and then Desnoyers takes over and makes something happen that's really quite something. So for me, as Desnoyers evolves and gets older, I think a really interesting progression for him might be, let's play him at center. I think it's pretty easy to see him being like a good third line NHL center. He's smart. He can monitor passing lanes in the defensive zone. He can make quick, safe passing decisions to get the puck out of his own end under control. He can be that trailing forward where the wingers get the puck up the ice a little quicker, and he's there supporting them and chipping in the offensive zone and making plays there. That's where I feel like he could be very, very valuable. Now, is that the type of player that I think is worth picking 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th overall? I don't think so. But pretty quickly after that, after what I've seen out of everyone in this tier and this class and everything, I mean, yeah, you could pretty easily sway me that this guy might be worth taking a chance on. There are other players that I think have higher pace, more skill level, more tested at higher levels. And I mean, I have Bill Zonin ranked higher, for example, because I think Zonin plays NHL playoff hockey a lot better, even if he doesn't have this sort of patience and vision and passing ability that Desnoyers has. But Zonin is just a physical menace on the ice, and I think he does it at a high enough pace where I think the NHL will be a much easier translation for him. Desnoyers really strikes me as a Dylan Strome type player, where you could draft this guy really, really high, but you might say no to a lot of really talented players. But 9-10 years after the fact, Dylan Strome has become a very dependable, useful middle six NHL forward who can produce, elevate the play of the guys he plays with, as long as you put them in the right situation and insulate them well. Analytically speaking, I mean, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because he was very good in a lot of different areas, and I've given him a 2A rating overall because I think that it's a pretty safe assumption to see that he will end up in this kind of a range, and generally a 2A is something that is in my middle of the first round generally. He threw a good rate of hits. He had a good amount of forechecking ability. He had a really, really good offensive threat generation. He was a huge source of shot assists, and that doesn't surprise me. Dangerous shot assists, there were a ton of those as well. Huge rates of slot passing. 30% of his shot attempts were from the slot, which is really, really good, but 53% of his shots came from the perimeter, which I think you could work on as well. Efficient transition player, especially offensively. I think the lack of foot speed and the lack of physical ability and the lack of pace in his game did, leave him behind on a lot of defensive rushes that, his defensive transition numbers were, I'd say, less effective than I personally would like, especially with regards to stick checking. But at the end of the day, I think there's a good player here. It took me a long time to really appreciate the sort of passing ability that he has, but for me, the projection is really where I get hung up a little bit. I obviously I can't dispute that he's scored a lot. I can't ignore the fact that he's scored a lot of points, but I watch a lot of the Quebec Major League, or the Quebec Maritimes League, I should say, and I feel like the distance from this to the NHL is really, really huge. But the interesting thing is that now we live in a world where Desnoyers can go to the NCAA. You don't have to put him in the AHL in 2 years. Granted, I feel like in 2 years he may very well be an AHL player, but we'll see. I don't really know. At the end of the day, good player. This year's draft is so volatile and so all over the place. Would I draft him where he's probably going to go? I don't think so, but I've really appreciated what he does and how smart he is and the timing and the vision that he has on the ice. It's really, really impressive. And so for me, I do like this guy, and I think that could be a good player here and a good, dependable NHL talent one day for whoever it is that picks him. So with that, we're going to call it. Thanks very much for joining me. This has been really, really fun. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, definitely like and subscribe to the channel. If you really liked it, go to scouching.ca, where a subscription, which helps us out a lot, directly will get you access to our Discord server, as well as access to these videos as soon as they're completed, and plenty of other goodies you can check out there at a variety of tiers for your price points. So with that, thank you very much. We'll see you in the next one.